Welcome back. Now, 2020 was a busy year for former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, who was heavily involved in peace building and conflict resolution in South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo as a special envoy nominated by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, with his efforts to expand the Wiper Party base and support for a non-contested BBI, he has had his hands full. Now, the Wiper Party leader sat down to speak to Waihiga Mwaura about the challenges of the past year and the hope of 2021 in another edition of our Events 2020 coverage.
Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka is a man who loves his suits, ties and African wear. Which is why it was a pleasant surprise to find him dressed down in sports gear, enjoying a game of basketball at his residence. When in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So I folded up my sleeves and got onto the court for a short round of the game. The former vice president doesn't just do this for exercise, but he says he sees a parallel between the game and the murky world of politics.
For you, you're ready to keep shooting?
I'll keep shooting.
Until you achieve your political goals?
Keep shooting, like that. That is a near me.
Honorable Kalonzo, I spoke with you about a year ago when you were looking into 2020. You had very optimistic projections. I'm sure you've had to revise those projections.
Ooh. Well, the only positive I remember personally is that I was enrolled as senior counsel before the year end. Actually, the last act that Chief Justice Maraga did before he left office, because when he was swearing in the rest of the team, I was out in the DRC. So, yeah, but it's been a very challenging year, really. In fact, we compounded as Kenyans with a propensity to stealing from ourselves. We steal KEMSA, we steal drugs that are meant for the poor and the sick. I mean, it's a terrible thing. And we really must run away from that kind of positioning as a country.
And it's interesting that you said that, because the last time we actually spoke, you were calling for swift action on those found guilty of what the Auditor General called complete disregard to procurement rules, by KEMSA. We're at the end of the year. We haven't had much after that. Do you feel that Kenyans will ever know the truth about what really happened at KEMSA?
Granted, I observed one or two sessions of the committees of the House trying to interview those implicated, those of interest, persons of interest, but I think it's like too little and too late. So Kenyans expect to hear of convictions going into the new year.
Even as you focus on the 2020 that's been, any positive moments for you?
We have seen some positive conversations in the sense that within the region, for instance, I was able to witness an understanding between President Salva Kiir and his deputy, Dr. Riek Machar, when they actually agreed to go back to where they left it in 2016. There are lots of things to be done in that country. Because of COVID, they have not been able to unify the army. Can you imagine a country with two armies? That is what it is in our neighborhood. They have to unify the army, and they have to do a lot of other extra things.
We moved to another location for the second part of the interview, and I began by asking him about the upcoming Machako senatorial contest and whether his party could face the same upset that ODM did in Msambweni.
By the way, I had occasion to visit Msambweni, so I can speak from a point of knowledge. And what happened in Msambweni should never be repeated. First of all, when you have a by-election situation, all the busybodies, quote unquote, end up there. They land there. But the unfortunate thing about Msambweni was the bribery. Terrible. That before a voter went in to cast a vote, they had to get 1,000 shillings. Now, that is a kind of democracy we will never. Some of us have in the past screamed about IBC. But this is not IBC now. It is people with intentions that go beyond a simple constituency and they want to prove a political point. Some saying, you know, what will come out of Mosambweni will determine BBI outcome. Others saying we want to teach a lesson and that kind of thing. So they made the stakes unnecessarily.
Primary by who?
I suppose that, because the final day I wasn't there. But I can tell you that even from the point of view of Wiper, which could have gotten even more votes, the whole thing turned out like it's between ODM and independent. Look at it this way, between Raila and Ruto. Now that is the wrong way to determine. The people of Mosambweni wanted to elect their own leader. They didn't want to elect Ruto or elect Raila. Now they ended up electing Ruto. Yeah, now, you know, put simply, and that gives people unnecessary confidence. In a general election situation, Waihiga, I want you to agree or disagree with me that the ball game will be different. Everybody will be in their own constituencies, their own wards, defending their own situation.
Are you concerned that a Tanga-Tanga-backed candidate, a Maendeleo Chap-Chap-backed candidate could pose a challenge?
I'm quite sure they will try to bring in a lot of ill-gotten money, because I'm sure whoever it is, Tanga-Tanga or whatever they call them, I think they are even reformulated. I don't know. But I know their mindset is, we want to teach Kalonzo a lesson. Wanajitayarisha. Hii ni wakati wa kumchinja Kalonzo sasa. Tunamchinja kutoka sijui mgongoni, atachinjwa. Hii ionyeshe kama ni ishara kwamba 2022 hayupo, hapendekani na watu. Najua wananoa visu vyao, lakini wajiandae, tutajitahidi.
Honorable Musyoka, before we move on, one last thing about the former governor of Nairobi County. How would you describe your relationship with him? Because he recently had some advice for you about your political future. He ushered some strong words at a public function recently, words similar to what Kipchumba Murkomen said at that same function, where Kipchumba Murkomen, for example, said, do not be lied to. We know Jubilee Party better than you do. They will shortchange you. He wanted you to reconsider your cooperation with Jubilee. So did Sonko. What do you make of that?
Yeah, these are guys who are trying to make a certain point. But people are entitled again to their opinion. In fact, Senator Kipchumba Murkomen had very nice things to say about me, that he knew me before he knew Ruto, which is a fact. And he said a similar thing when he attended my late father's funeral. So you should not be surprised if the going becomes too tough for some of our friends, that we are one people, we are brothers. But nobody should say they know Uhuru better than I do. That for sure is not.
So you're not taking their advice seriously?
No. It's not persuasive at all. I have my own capacity to know whether I'm being lied upon, yeah, whether I'm being dragged through the mud, or whether I'm the one dragging people through the mud. You never know, yeah. So at the end of the day, Waihiga, we are one country, and I think we should, in an attitude of sobriety, approach these political leadership challenges.
Let me begin by getting a view from you on what 2021 will look like for Kenyans. Bearing in mind, just recently, the IEBC announced that they were looking for clerks to help with the verification of the signatures for the BBI. And the data we have reveals that 139,000 Kenyans applied for 400 roles. Some say that that is the state of Kenya today. Unemployment. How did we get here?
We sincerely think that we need to look for jobs. Because we would want to have a situation where industries will be working 24 hours. Our international airport, although we are losing our competitive advantage, I am afraid, to a country like Rwanda, simply because of propensity to ask for kitu kidogo. Qatar Airways are now going to put as a local airport, Kigali, and they're developing a big hub. What would that mean to JKIA when we are not even able to do a second runway? All right. Therefore, if you go to Dubai today, or even during COVID situation, I've had time to fly through Dubai. Busy, 24-hour economy. Our strength as a country is in the service sector. We need to sharpen this, create as many jobs as we can, yeah, and therefore that's why in Wiper we have come up with a clarion call: kazi bila wizi. Because others will say kazi, kazi, kazi ni kazi, but you look at what they have. Hey, look at what really. We're going to have to lift the veil. There's a doctrine in law, yeah, which is very interesting. Yeah, behind everything, sometimes you lift the veil and look at the real face of people. And Kenyans will have to call a spade in the fight against corruption, in the need to invent those millions and millions of jobs. And therefore, this corridor, and as I said it, I think before, we must think out of the box.
Let me then ask you this. You have been a strong supporter of the Building Bridges initiative. I believe you still are.
A supporter. A strong one, not so sure, but a supporter. I don't believe in adjectives, because there are issues there where I've to point out people. You know, therefore BB1 or BBI1 was issues. BBI2, now we're dealing with BBI3, the drafts, to which I appointed some teams to look at. And
but your party has supported BBI.
So, no hesitation. No hesitation.
These 139,000 Kenyans who are looking for work desperately, what does BBI have for them?
Yeah, those jobs in the villages. If you imagine you're going to create some percentage to go to every ward, minus the corruption in awarding tenders at that level or the district level, because truth be told, corruption is everywhere in our counties. They decentralized, they devolved corruption. That's why in Ghana, in Nigeria, when they started with this devolution, I think the first batch of governors, half of them went to jail, even after they left office. So I don't think any governor who has been involved in corrupt practices should sit pretty. We must get to the bottom of it. If we get rid of corruption at that level, we will create jobs at the villages. Even with the stolen funds, by the way, you go to your home county, you will see people building new houses. Actually, the villages are becoming more attractive. But in majority of cases, it is some CEC who has stolen from some fund there and build a house. Never mind, whoever is bringing sand and ballast or whatever is local. So this is how we create these jobs.
In your view, can the Kenyan economy, and you have talked about how it will face challenges even into 2021, can it handle a referendum in a couple of months, an election in less than 2 years, and you know the disruption that comes with those political processes, with so many jobs shed because of COVID-19?
The challenges are there, for sure. They are not insurmountable. I cannot pretend that it's easy to handle both at the same time. This is where I'm saying, give proper consultations a chance under BBI. If that becomes unavoidable, then some moderate sums be set aside to conduct the referendum, because that is unavoidable. You cannot touch chapters on the Constitution 2010 itself sets out the formula to be followed in amending it. So you cannot avoid a referendum when you're touching, say, the executive. And we need also to debunk the myth that people are creating jobs for themselves. I think the issue here is inclusivity. Inclusivity is important. And I think this is the logic that the winner takes all everything. I know there are people who ask a question, then the winner takes everything. But the official position, shadow cabinet, funded by the exchequer, will also be a form of an inclusivity. I foresee a situation where my friend William Ruto will be the leader of the official position in 2022. He will be fully funded.
That's your prediction?
Yes. If he continues, I mean, he may choose not to run. I'm not saying he may choose not to run, but if he chooses to run, that's a serious likelihood. And if I was to actually give any advice to William, I would tell him, this thing about saying an independent candidate, and you back a candidate where the president said, in the case of Musambweni, Jubilee will have no candidate, then you go out. I mean, sit true and see. What's the English word? You act like a difficult child, if not as a deputy. And then the level of trust gets diminished. The office of the president, the office of the deputy president, these are the highest offices in the land. And if they are not seen to work together, clearly the country cannot be at peace.